So, hello, I'm Andrea Smith from Happy Cloud Creations. I designed the Snowy Day quilt sampler that we're using in the block challenge. Sorry, I'm on a couple minutes late. So I just did a live video for, I guess, only my friends page, and I thought I was doing it on the National Quilters Circle page. I'm like, oh, there's only a couple people watching. I was surprised. So let's try this again on the group page. I'm from Washington State, so it's about 8:30 here. I just got my kids to sleep. They did not want to go to sleep, so that took me a while, and then I accidentally did the video on the wrong page. So a couple of you guys are joining me right now. I hope you guys are enjoying. We had a little bit of cold weather today. It snowed in Seattle. Didn't snow where I live, but we're pretty close to Seattle. And so we'll see. This will be interesting. This is only my third live video. I hope you guys are enjoying the block challenge so far. I'm loving seeing everybody's blocks. I like seeing all the different fabrics. That makes the quilt look so much different when it's in different fabrics. So first, I guess we'll go over some of the tools. I know most of you quilters have tools already. For beginners that don't really have anything, the tools I definitely recommend are a cutting mat, a rotary cutter for sure. You gotta have your scissors, your pins, your large acrylic ruler, see-through ruler basically. And then I like to use a water-soluble pen when I'm marking my half-square triangles. It disappears on the fabric, not all the way, but it'll wash out. If you use a Sharpie, the only thing I worry about is when you're doing the Sharpie, if it's really dark and you don't cut it all the way off, it might show through. But I don't know if that's just me being over-worrying about that, because I know some people do Sharpie, and if you're pressing your seams open, the black might show through. But whatever you want to use, you can use. I know some people use pencils too. Another ruler that is very helpful, but it's not necessary. I have the 6.5 inch. The blocks in the pattern call for a 4.5 inch, but you can use a larger one. I like to use it because it has this diagonal line that you can use for your half square triangles. But it's not necessary because the large ruler is going to have your diagonal line as well. It just will take a lot longer to cut out all your squares, because you're going to have to cut all 4 sides with this one side. If you're using this square, you can do several at a time. So I'll show you that in a little second too. So, hi from Australia. I see you in Oklahoma. I usually don't wear my sweater when I'm sewing, just because I'm a messy sewer and I get little strings all over my sweaters, and it's hard to pick them off all my sweaters. So usually I'm just a little chilly tonight. Hello from Kansas, Louise. So first off, people were wondering since we're only doing block at a time, how should we cut out our fabric? Well, I like to basically fold your fabric selvage to selvage, and then I cut out a 4-inch strip using my long ruler, 4.5 inch strip, and a 5 1/4 inch strip using my big ruler. And then from that, you want to cut your 4.5 inch blocks and your 5.5 inch blocks, and just save it for next week or the following weeks, because I know I think it only needs 4.5 inch blocks, but later you're going to need some 2.5 inch strips from that too. So just kind of save it, or you could use it for a different project and just cut a whole new 2.5 inch strip for that. And so I guess also one way I like to keep organized is when I print out the pattern, I like to actually physically write on it my colors that I'm going to use. So like for color A, teal, orange, that's the other block I'm doing, not the one tonight. But so I keep organized. But I saw in the group, a couple people were actually taking the fabric they're using and actually writing on it A, B, C, and D and like putting it with your pattern just so you keep organized so you don't get confused by the ones that are written on the pattern and the colors in the pattern. Kind of like, okay, which one was my A, which one was my B. So that helps me keep organized. And so I guess, I'll just keep looking, see if anybody has questions. I know a lot of people are worrying about their half square triangles lining up. A couple tips that I've read were accurate sewing of your 1/4 inch seams. That helps. Cutting these out accurately, that helps too. So that's why I like to go with a bigger square, the 5 1/4, instead of, some people are like, why don't you just make it so that when you cut them, they'll be the exact size you need? Because sometimes if you do that, they'll be wonky, and then some parts will be too small, some parts will be big, and then when you go sew them all together, your block doesn't line up and it looks kind of wonky and you're like, what's going on? When you trim it so it's that perfect 4 1/2 inch block, it's going to match all your just flat plain blocks too. So the first step in the half square triangle, we're going to take our 2 squares. So I had my husband read the pattern, like, okay, so if you've never sewed, what would you think? Is this explanatory enough? And he's like, right sides of fabric? Are you talking about like left and right? I'm like, no, I think most sewers know that right side of fabric means the printed side. So you take your 2 printed sides, you put them together, and then you're going to want to draw your line diagonal to diagonal. What I like to do is I take my water soluble pen, make a little line there, and then I take my big ruler and I'll do a line from one edge to the other. And then if you can see, I know some people are drawing a 1/4 inch seam next to it, 1/4 inch seam. I have a 1/4 inch walking foot, so I just line that one up right here, and I sew on both sides 1/4 inch. I know that since there's some wiggle room in trimming it, you probably could even use your presser foot. Presser foots tend to be a little bit more than a 1/4 inch seam. I used to always use that, but then when I would like try to plan out my quilts, they ended up being a little bit smaller in calculations. So once I got the 1/4 inch seam foot, everything's a lot more accurate, and when you're doing patterns, it'll be like the size you wanted it to be instead of a couple inches shorter quilt because you're using that presser foot. So once you got that done, you're going to cut it down the center. I use scissors. You can use a rotary cutter, and then you're going to have 2 half square triangles. You're going to want to take that half square triangle, press it with your iron. You don't want to iron it like this. That could make your seam all wonky from the pressure, but just press it. And then you're going to open it up and just kind of finger press it open and then press it again with the iron like that. And then you're going to have these little dog ears, and see, it's not perfectly square. It's a little wonky. So that's why we're going to want to trim them down. When you do that, that's why I like the square. Actually, I just bought this square probably a couple months ago. And so I used to use my big ruler, and then I'd have to trim down each side, and it took a long time. So once I got this square ruler, I'm like, wow, that's a lot faster. You want to line that square perfectly on that diagonal line. It has to be perfect. Press really hard when you're trimming, and you trim this edge and this edge at one time. And then you're going to flip it around, and you're going to trim this edge and this edge. And when you're doing the second trimming, you want to make sure it's lined up with this, wrong way. Yeah, wrong way. You want it to be lined up with the 4 1/2 inch line here. And you want it to be, the 4 1/2 inch line. And the 4 1/2 inch line, so that you know it's totally 4.5 inch. And once you do that, your half square triangles should look like this. They should be perfectly at the ends, perfectly equal amounts of fabric on both sides. Because I noticed a couple people had half square triangles that they're like, there's way more of this fabric showing than this fabric. And that's why, because you're not accurately doing that. And I want you to also know that if you're a beginner quilter, this is your first, second quilt, I would not give yourself too hard of a time for your points lining up, because this is handmade. It's not perfect. You're learning. My first quilt with half square triangles, I was probably like 14, 15. Probably more of them didn't line up than lined up. I still have that quilt. I love that quilt. The fabrics don't go together. It's not that pretty, but I made it with my 2 hands, and that's something special that you can treasure forever. Oh, you lost that trim. Okay, so what is what called? K. I'm not sure what you're talking about. What are you talking about? The ruler? Okay. I know live videos, sometimes there's a little bit of delay, so you might like ask a question a little bit after I've already talked about something. But yeah, so we strive for perfection in our quilting, but you don't want to get hung up on it and make it unenjoyable for you. Like, you're like, if you get just too stressed, these aren't lining up, you're not going to be enjoyable. But once you've quilted it and it's all crinkly from being washed and dried, you're not going to notice the little tiny points that aren't matching up. You're just going to love this handmade item that you made with your 2 hands. You know, not everybody can say they've done that. Okay, this square is just basically a 6.5 inch ruler, and I use that to square up my half square triangles. I know you can get smaller ones, but I like big blocks because I have young children and I don't get to sew very much. So if a quilt has big blocks, then quilts go together quickly and I can have snuggly quilts fast. So we trim each one after it's done to 4.5 inches. Sorry, must sound silly, but it's, yeah, because we're starting out at 5 1/4. So if you were just to trim that down, you're going to have a lot of excess. See, I can even show you. So this one's untrimmed and this one's trimmed. So if you see how much needs to be trimmed off? So I like to trim every edge because then it's going to be a perfect 4.5 inch square. Cool, you got a 4.5 inch square ruler, Carolyn. That's awesome. I like to do bigger ones, so that's why I'm like, I'd probably use this more, so that's why I got a bigger one. Oh, cool, $4. Okay, so now that you got your perfect 4.5 inch squares, you got your perfect squares, they're going to match up, and they're going to go together perfectly. I also noticed someone also posted when you're putting them, you want to put them, lay them out. I like to lay them out, and I like to sew 2 together at a time, and then I'll sew the whole row together. Basically, I'll sew these 2 together, and then I'll sew both rows, both sections together. Then I got a row. And then you press this section one way and press this section another way so that those seams will interlock because they'll be going different ways, and so they'll butt right up next to each other. So if you want to see what I mean by that, that's another way to get your points to be very accurate. I like to start pinning in my center. You get them butted up next to each other like that, as close as you can get them. And I like to put a pin right there, butt this one up, put a pin right there, and I put a pin in between each pin. So I butt all these up, pin them in place, and then put pins along it. And so that if you get accurate 1/4 inch seams, and then also when I'm going over these, because they're thicker, sometimes your needle will move the fabric around. So I like to go really slow over these intersecting fabrics. And then when you're going over it, you can actually see where that point is. And you want your needle to be right there, sewing that line. And then your points will line up really good. If you're still having trouble with the 1/2 inch squares or 1/2 square triangles, I noticed Deborah Davis, she posted a blog post in the group where it has step-by-step pictures of this block. And so that might help you to, like, from memory. I can post the link to that in my comments. I guess I'm not sure if there's anything else. If you guys have any questions. When do I iron? I iron at every step. So you do your 1/2 square triangles, you open those up, you finger press them open, you iron. You want to actually press, not iron. Pressing will keep it solid, ironing will make it all wonky. Yeah, I'm gonna save this so everybody can watch it tomorrow, because there's actually participants. I think the last count I got was 18,000 participants worldwide. So there's a lot of people that are definitely sleeping right now or at work. So I'm going to save this video so people can watch it tomorrow. Oh no, you can't hear the sound, Mary? I wonder if that's... And can other people hear the sound? I think they can. Yes, I set my seams first. You want to set them, and then Gail, yeah, you set them, and then you flip them over, press them, so they're nice and flat. Yeah, 18,000, isn't that crazy? Not all of them are in the group, but they've signed up to the actual challenge. Okay, other people can hear me. I don't starch my fabrics, but I hear other people do. I don't wash them. So I used to be an avid washer, and then I got on Instagram and was following a bunch of quilters, and a lot of them don't wash their fabric, and so I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. What I do is once the quilt is finished, I will wash it with like 2 or 3 Shout color catchers, and so that will pick up any loose dye that you have, since so these fabrics, you know, I have a lot of white and then I have red. I don't want my whole quilt turning pink. So I would wash it with a few color catchers, and then you don't have to worry about that. I'm filming from Washington State, so we're at 8:55. So I got on here a little late. You guys probably didn't hear it because it's at the beginning of the video. So I did the whole video, and then I'm done, and I'm like, there was only like 2 or 3 people on there. And then I realized I was doing it on my private family Facebook page. And I'm like, oh man, that was supposed to be in the group. This is only like my 2nd live video. So I'm like, oh great. So I'm gonna have to do that again. Do I steam the iron? I do when I'm ironing it flat, but I typically don't. I read something, I think it was Susie Quilt. She was talking about when you have seams on the bias, if you use a lot of steam, they might get wonky. I just always tend to run out of water in my iron, so I don't do a lot of steam. Do I press the 1/2 square triangles open? Yes, so I like to finger press them open first and then iron it. So it's nice and crisp. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you guys are ready for bed. Well, I think that's mostly all that I had to talk about. The next block comes out on Thursday, so I'm super excited to see all your guys' blocks. I'm loving seeing everybody's blocks and all the different fabrics. It's making me want to go buy some more fabric. I'm kind of on a fabric diet right now, trying to sew up what I have. I have a one box that I want to sew up before I buy a lot more flat fabric. So nice to see my face. Well, thank you. I know I can see some people's faces on their icons, but then some people I can't see their faces. I'm glad you guys are having fun with the challenge. I'm having fun too. Just seeing, it's amazing. I thought only like a couple hundred people were going to sign up. And then when Bailey from National Quilters Circle told me 18,000 signed up, I was pretty shocked. So that's pretty cool to have that many people worldwide doing the same quilt. I think that's pretty amazing. Making something handmade with your own two hands, and you get to keep it forever. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the challenge. I would like to name a few people that I love their blocks, but there's been so many blocks. Like, I'll sit there for like almost an hour looking at all the beautiful blocks, trying to heart them all. But I did that the other day. I was just like liking them, commenting, and then all of a sudden my Facebook page got shut down, and they like stopped it for a couple hours. I couldn't get in because they thought somebody hacked my account because I was being way too active on it, I guess, from liking all of your guys' beautiful blocks. The comments are going so fast. Ooh, Hawaii. So you guys are earlier than us. Oh, that's cool. So the quilt will come out to be a 56.5 inch square. So that's pretty good size for a throw, but I know I'm short, so that's perfect size for me. But once we get to that stage of the quilt assembly part, that'll be week 10. So after we get all the blocks together, I was gonna, share some info on how to make your block a little bigger. I know some people are making extra blocks, and you could make your sashing bigger. So that'd be a good way to make it bigger, because I'm short, and I'm sure a 6-foot man or woman would want a little longer quilt. No video or sound for you, Ruth. You might need to log in and out, Ruth. I know I might not have that good of a connection. I'm not sure. This is only like my second live video. But it was nice talking with all of you guys, and I'm excited to see your next block on Thursday. So if there's any other questions, I don't think really, once you get the half square triangles down, the next few blocks are going to be easy. And then on week 3, I kind of made it an easier block, so people that are kind of behind, they can catch up. Ooh, I like that idea. So you chose block 7. I'm trying to think. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys noticed the way I designed the quilt. I kind of did the corner ones angularing inward, and then the other ones were just kind of solid. So when we get to the point of sewing all of our blocks together, making a quilt, you can actually lay it down on the floor, mix them up, see how you like it, see what flow is the best, and then you want to sew it together that way. Molly, there's a pin post at the top of the group page, and that'll take you to the block instructions. It'll be a blog post with a PDF, printable PDF that you can get. Yes, Karen, this will be saved to the page, so people, because there's people worldwide that are doing this challenge, and this won't be, they're sleeping and working and stuff, so Shannon, you can rewatch this. I kind of highlighted the half square triangles a little bit. And also I'm going to post a link to Deborah Davis's blog post, which she does picture by picture of the whole block. So I think I'm probably going to be done unless there's any questions. Do you guys have any questions for me? Have a good night, too. Mahalo. So I'll check in with you guys next week, see if you have any questions. Probably Monday again. It's easiest for me to start a live video after I've put my little kids to sleep. That's usually when I do all my sewing. Block 2 will not disappear. If you notice, Justin put in the file section of the group, if you go to the top, if you're on a laptop or a computer, you go to the top, click on files, and he has a spot that will have a link to each block. Also, when you go to the next blog post, at the bottom, it has a link for block 1, then it'll have a link for block 2, and then it actually says the date that the next blocks will be coming out. Yeah, Deborah, I wouldn't worry about it. You know, not all handmade things are perfect. You know, we're not perfect. We're imperfect humans, and we can strive for perfection, but nobody's going to have 100% perfect quilt. It's, you know, it's going to be awesome because you made it with your 2 hands, and you're going to treasure it forever because you made it, and you're going to love it. What time it'll come out Thursday. I'm going to have to check with the National Quilters Circle people to see what time they're sending out the email. If you signed up after Thursday, this last Thursday, you probably didn't get an email because it comes with their newsletter, and their newsletter comes out on Thursdays. So I'll check with them to see about what time their newsletter's coming out, because I know some people were wondering that last time. They were thinking it was coming out at midnight or AM, you know. So, okay, so I'm sure a lot of you guys need to go to bed. So, I will talk to you guys next week. See ya. Oh, Ellen. So I know some people press their seams opened. I've just never done that. And so when I'm pressing them, I just try to push them down hard so they're not that bulky. I don't know. I just like the way it looks when you press them to one side and the other, and then they interlock really well. The blog address, I will put the blog for the, Lori, are you talking about Deborah Davis's blog or the blog for the National Quilters Circle? I'll put both of them in the comments. The address for the first blog post, I'll put it in the comments, and then I'll put the address for the Deborah Davis's blog post where she goes over the whole pattern. That was so nice of her to do that. I don't get much time to do things, and so I don't think I would have time to do that. The National Quilters Circle, I will put that in the, it's actually pinned to the top of the group. If you are on a mobile device, you'll actually see this little pin mark and you have to click on it. If you're on a laptop or a computer and you get into Facebook, it'll just show up on the top. But if you're on a mobile device, you actually have to click that little pin to find the pin post. I'll put the link in the comments when I'm done with this. Or maybe I'll just put it up in the explanation or description too. So, smacking the butterfly where it gets bulky with a jewelry mallet. Good idea. Smack that. I know, because I just kind of press it really hard because I want them to interlock, and I feel like if I iron them open, they want it. And then, I don't know, I've just always pressed them to the side. Yeah. And cut them down. Yep, I like trimming them too. Jeanette. Makes them better that way. Alright, I'm going to get going. I'm reading at the same time. So, and you guys are like, what is she doing? So, I'm going to get going, and I'll probably check in with you guys next week. See ya!